Just finished up practice. Encouraged by the way that this group is responding. Ultimately, I think this team understands that results do matter, and also, we're not defined by one bad day or one bad game. Got to respond, and this group, so far in our preparation for Western Illinois, has done a great job of that. Full focus on Western Illinois. Had an opportunity yesterday morning to put Tulane to bed and learn and grow. But full focus on a Western Illinois team that's on the rise. I've known Joe Davis for a long time through recruiting ties in Illinois. He spent some time at University of Northern Iowa prior to my time there. Joe and I used to work the showcase here together as visiting coaches. Got a tremendous amount of respect for him. Did a really good job last year, taking a program that was struggling. Got them to 4 wins. They've done a good job in their recruiting. The personnel and the talent that they have on the roster, is improving. They got some good players. I think Joe and his staff do a good job of being creative and finding ways to keep you uncomfortable. New defensive coordinator this year, so figuring out what that's going to look like and what tendencies exist there. Great challenge in front of us. We got to be at our best. The way that we've been practicing over the course of the last 9 months needs to show up on Friday night.
Jake. Coach, after Saturday's game, John Summerall was very vocal about the decision for Northwestern to not let Tulane wear white uniforms during their 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina game, calling it disrespectful. Do you have any comment on Coach Summerall's post-game remarks? And was this something he spoke to you about either in the lead-up to the game or after?
Yeah, the second that I heard about his comments post-game, I immediately tracked down John's number and gave him a call, left him a message. He texted me back later Saturday night. We had a chance to connect yesterday, which I appreciated. Caught me off guard, but I understand where he's coming from. I thought he did a great job of utilizing that to really motivate his team. They played inspired football. Ultimately, the decision around that was certainly not a gesture of disrespect. I don't pretend to understand what the city of New Orleans has been through, but what I can tell you is that this university, myself, have a tremendous amount of respect for the impact that Hurricane Katrina had on New Orleans in that region. I had an opportunity to see it firsthand. I mean, May of 2006, myself and 20 of my teammates and coaches got in, vans and drove down to New Orleans and spent a week, mucking houses and just trying to do our small part and trying to help that community. It was, seeing it firsthand, it was devastating. And the resiliency that New Orleans has shown, the toughness that they've shown, the community that's shown up the last 2 decades for that city to be where it is at today, certainly not a gesture of disrespect. Having a chance to return to New Orleans for the first time since that trip, I think where that city's at right now is a reflection of the people that call it home, and it was good to have an opportunity to talk with John yesterday.
Coach, 2-parter here. Firstly, how would you evaluate Garner Wallace's performance on Saturday? And secondly, what does it mean for him, and what does it say about him to step up in his 5th year in the program as a depth piece and really perform the way he did?
Yeah. The thing that's exciting about Garner is he stayed the course, started to make his name on special teams. Coach Barnett gets here, just continuing to improve. And someone this past spring that we just said, how we can't not have this guy on the field, And he's really shown up, and to see him show up the way that he did on Saturday, need that level of play to continue to trend in that direction. But I'll say this boldly: I think Garner Wallace has an opportunity to have a huge impact, not even on the next game, but this entire season. And really commend him for the way that he stayed the course. He's one of those guys we talk about. Guys blossom at different times in their development. Garner Wallace over the last year has really come into his own.
Coach, obviously there was some discussion after that first game against Tulane about just the team's approach and where to be aggressive, where to be conservative, and just more generally zooming out, I wanted to ask about your approach to modern football analytics and what that looks like for Northwestern as a program, and especially how that's evolved for you from your first year coming in as an interim to now at year 3 at the helm.
Yeah, it's certainly part of the conversations. We have weekly meetings, coordinator meetings. We have the analytics in front of us. We discuss it. What we've done a much better job, what I've done a much better job of this year is really sitting down this off season and talking strategically, like, what is our plan? Where do we think our team's at? What things can we leverage? What things do we have to limit? A book can tell you some things, but the context of where we're at personnel-wise, how we're playing, how the weather is affecting things. But we go into every game having a very clear and detailed plan. And ultimately, it can be coach speak of, like, in the red zone we need to score touchdowns, but what are we doing to help our offense actually execute on that? Where do we value field position more than an opportunity to go for it on fourth down? Where do we value points over an opportunity to go for it on fourth down? All things that we've worked through as a staff, things that I won't share openly on what that plan is, but I'm excited about where we're at with that plan. And I think the fine balance, to answer your question directly, is using analytics, collecting the information, but not being just blindly, okay, the book says this, so we're going to do this, and contextualizing every decision.
Coach, you were missing 2 defensive starters on Saturday in Damon Walters and Ori Adei. Do you have any updates on what they've been dealing with and, when they project to return, if they'll be available for this Friday? Yeah,
I won't get in the habit of sharing directly what they're dealing with, but what I will tell you is Damon right now is week to week. I mean, we'll know more tomorrow in terms of his availability, this week. But excited to get him back. What that timeline looks like, still uncertain. Really optimistic about Ori. I mean, he was out there practicing today. So, hoping that we see him at full speed on Friday. But everything that young man's been through, cannot wait to see him back out there on game day for the Cats.
Matt. Coach, you mentioned what sounded like, community service with you and your team going down to New Orleans. Can you share a little more about, what organization that was through, who initiated that? Again, just tell me a little bit more about what that process was like.
Yeah, I believe it was through an organization called Samaritan's Purse. I believe it was Matt Entz, actually, our defensive coordinator at the time at Winona State, had brought up the opportunity to our leadership council, myself, Colin Charleston, Scott Peterson, other guys that I played college football with. Bruce Carpenter, who's a high school coach up in the Twin Cities now, was our offensive coordinator at the time at Winona State. So it was a couple coaches, a bunch of players. Finals got done in early May. We loaded up in a bunch of vans and headed down. And it was like I said. It was devastating to see it, but hopefully we played a small role in having a positive impact on some people's lives. And ultimately, I think it comes back to the respect and appreciation for the way the city of New Orleans has rebounded the last 2 decades, and speaks to the character of the people that call it home.
And then you